Now, I get it. I've been a little hard on Gen Z lately, and I was going to give them a break, take it easy, and not pick on them so much because, we all know how it gets. You got that percentage of them that go absolutely nuts and get crazy. However, when you start seeing things, and I'm sitting there this morning, I'm having my coffee, and what pops up, another thing about Gen Z and talking about their quiet quitting and lazy and lazy Mondays or minimum work Mondays or whatever the hell it is. They talk about this and it creates a problem because they say, well, we can do this, and we do it. And it doesn't create a problem. You don't have to work that hard. The only reason that they go in there and they can get away with doing this is because there's somebody coming along and picking up their slack. This is something you have to understand when you get going and you get in the workplace and you do these things and you take this attitude. There's going to be somebody that's going to get burdened with your work and having to pick up your slack because you decided to be lazy. If you take on a job and you agree to take a job and you're getting paid for that job, do that job. I mean, if they want you to do extras, sure, stand your ground and don't do the extras. Don't come in on your day off. Don't stay later for unpaid work, okay? You want to stand your ground on that? Go right ahead. But that work you have, you do it, because if you're lazy, someone else has to pick up your slack. I had a guy one time on my one crew. We'd usually, when we were working, we'd pair off. And I'd have 2 guys over here and 2 over there, and then me and 1 guy in another spot. And I had this one guy, I'd always pair him up with this other guy because they got a lot done. And I sat there the one day. This guy, Jesse, when I paired him up with this other kid, he looked at me and he looked right at me and he said, "Why do you hate me? Why are you punishing me every time by putting Kamala with me?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I'm so sick and tired of always getting paired with him and having to pick up his slack to get the work done." He says, "I work 3 times harder just so we can get out of here for the day because he lazes around." And that becomes an issue. You want to come in and you sit there and be like, "Well, they only pay you this much, so I'm not going to do much." You really think that type of attitude is ever going to get you more money? That type of attitude is ever going to get you promoted? That if you come in with the attitude that if you don't give me what I want when I want it, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to do the minimal work possible, you're just going to get your ass fired. And someone else is going to have to pick up the slack, do extra work, and work that what you were supposed to be doing, they're now doing that you're getting paid for. So here's a solution. All you younger people that want to do these things, these minimal work, minimal effort Mondays, and, these lazy Wednesdays, whatever the hell you want to call it. Every time you put in one of these days and you put in minimal effort, and someone at your work ends up having to pick up the slack because of you, if they pick up 20% of your slack because of that, maybe they should get 20% of your pay that day. See how that goes. You're like, "I'm not going to work this hard because they're not paying me what I want." But if they're paying you a certain amount for a certain job already, and you're not doing what you're supposed to, and you're doing the bare minimum that you possibly could, maybe you should have to give up a percentage of your pay to the other people who are picking up your slack because you're just downright lazy, spoiled, entitled. And yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue, and it falls on the parents. Yes, it does. Now, there are many parents out there that ended up, clearly, that article I went over, that 20% were fully prepared and ready to go. That means 20% were prepared by their parents to go out into the workplace, do that job, work. They were prepared to be in college. And then you got those that aren't. I mean, there was another article I read one time that was from college professors, university professors, that turned around and wrote an open letter and stated that most of their students don't actually pass their classes. They just give them the passing grades now anyway because they're tired of parents coming into the office and complaining that they think their child should have got a better grade, even though they didn't earn it. That all starts, that one there, I think you can take that blame all the way back to when they came up with that stupid idea when the government came up with the whole no child left behind policy when it came to school. It wasn't that they bettered education to make sure that nobody got left behind because they didn't learn. They just started running everybody through anyway, whether you were qualified to move on to the next grade. They just guaranteed you had to pass them with the minimum grade so they could move forward, so they weren't left behind from their friends. It had nothing to do with not being left behind as far as being educated. It was physically not being left behind from their friends. That there created a lot of the issues we have today with people being so entitled when it comes to grades or earning something or getting something that they never earned, because it started in school, even in elementary, when they didn't have to earn it. I mean, you remember when we were younger? Many people got held back, especially when it came to kindergarten and grade 1 and grade 2. Many kids got held back a grade because their reading wasn't good enough. They just weren't ready to move on. Because once you bumped up one more grade, all of a sudden you had a lot more reading, you had a lot more math. So they would actually keep people behind. I seen kids get held behind in kindergarten and then again in grade 1. But even then you started seeing the differences, because if someone transferred in from another state or another district, they would actually sit there and say, our standards are actually a little higher than theirs, and they were in grade 2 in their state, but when they come to yours, all of a sudden they were bumped down a grade because the standards weren't quite the same. So it's not all a new problem when it comes to the education part and people today not learning. It started then. It was a small fraction, but of course, like everything, once you let it in the door, more and more and more follow and it goes through. It's that whole slippery slope. People too often, they sit there and say, well, we can do this because it'll help. But nobody sits back and goes, should we do this? What is the long-term consequence of this new policy? What is the long-term consequence of no longer forcing them to learn up to a certain level to move forward? Problem now, we got a lot of people that finish high school that are classed as illiterate or don't have the ability. They do not have the ability to go on to college. In fact, colleges and universities now are getting mad that they're told they're not to write the standardized tests and not to judge on it anymore on the SATs, because it eliminates too many people. But now they can't judge who's actually prepared to go on to college. Just because you had good grades in high school does not mean that you're ready and capable to go on to college or university and study on your own fruition and learn and maintain the grades that be there. When someone who might not have had the best grades in school might be more prepared to actually study on their own and fight for them grades in order to learn something. Anyway, this has gone off on a tangent that I really wasn't expecting, and that'll be it for now. So this is Strack saying so long, enjoy, have a great day. It's middle of the week, and peace out, everybody.